Well, hopefully you're having a great day today. In this video, we're going to talk about the top 5 space stocks that you want to watch right now. Now, I'm going to very quickly give you them so you don't have to wait around to the very end, but I would encourage you, if you want to know why these are the top space companies that are lifting off, then you might want to at least stick around here for the reasoning. So here are the top 5 space tech stocks we're watching this week. We got Rocket Lab, we got Redwire, we got LUNR, along with Black Sky and ASTS, and Planet Labs. That's a bonus there. Um, and so we're going to jump in right now. We're going to do a full analysis of each space stock and break it down with our 3-part analysis. So the first step is to look at the market of this asset class we're looking at here, stocks and how they're doing, and then kind of narrow down to the smaller market, which is the space tech market. So when we look at the market in general, we have a potential rate cut happening in the next day or so from the Fed. So that could potentially really surge a lot of smaller cap stocks. So the greater market has seen some momentum over the last week leading into what could be a rate cut. Now, it's possible that we do see a hike on the rates or a no cuts, like they don't cut anything. I want to say a hike, but that they don't cut anything, or that we've already seen the market price in for the anticipation of a rate cut, and that we can actually see, even with a rate cut, a pullback in the market. So this is the breakdown of the smaller market of space tech. Space tech is seeing more investments from NASA, from the Department of Defense, from definitely all the government agencies really that are involved in defense are investing into space tech. But you also have private companies building out their infrastructure in space tech, and that's a factor. So the market's growing, it's growing very fast, and I think it's growing well over 20 to 30% per year right now. So just the growth of the space tech market is very strong right now. So the first stock on our list here is Rocket Lab. And I see some people in the chat. What's going on, Patty? Hopefully you're having a great day today. I see Sandesh there as well, in Redwire there, and then Zed is here. Good afternoon. It's just afternoon here in California. So Rocket Lab, let's jump into it. So from a market perspective, they are seeing more contracts and more growth. The reason why is because they're doing the satellites that they're launching with the Electron, but they're also building rockets right now that are very end to end. So meaning they do the thrusters, they'll do the solar, they'll do the manufacturing of the parts, they're doing everything that goes into the rockets, from the hardware to the software. They're doing it to the semiconductors. So when it comes to Rocket Lab, they're very much end to end, meaning in their process they're building their own solutions for almost every part of the rocket. So that's why we see them get a lot of momentum here. So I have a friend that works at this company. He said they were really seeing a lot of growth recently. And one of the reasons too is that they're launching for a lot of companies right now. So missions launched, you could see they have launched for NASA. They're definitely launching for Black Sky as well, which is a company that has the AI driven satellites, which we have on our top 5 list. Kinéis, which is a company that has been launching similar to Starlink. They're launching their satellites for Internet of Things and connectivity. They've done quite a few launches there. So they're enabling companies to get into space. You got NASA, quite a few NASA missions there, in order for those companies to grow. So they're providing value to the marketplace, and as a result, they're seeing that reflect in their financials. So when their financials, this is kind of the second step that we're in of the analysis, we've seen, if we just take a step back, there are a lot of hype articles, people talking about Rocket Lab. We started really getting into them around $3 a share. We're a little bit lucky in that instance, but their market cap is now up to 25 billion and their price is at $53 a share. So you as an investor looking at the recent performance of gaining about 6% in the last month here, they're really starting to grow, and they saw a 10% climb here on Friday. Now what do we have next? So the financials are showing signs of getting compensation from these companies they're launching for. So we see them increase their revenue quarter over quarter. So with the exception of a slight dip in March 2025, we've seen them get up from 100 million to 130 and then to 144. That's 144 million. So the revenue is growing kind of like at the rate at which the space tech market is growing that we pointed out earlier, which is around 20 to 40% a year. So their revenue is growing right now at about 36% year over year. If you look annually from a bigger macro picture, it's even more impressive. It looks like 78% actually year over year, not just the quarter over quarter that we were going over. So the balance sheet is also the financial strength. So as they've been getting more contracts, they've been providing all these missions and launching these other companies up into space, and seeing that the demand for the space infrastructure that companies want, whether it's satellites, it could be, different connectivity things, some infrastructure here and there, maybe even launching like to Mars or to the moon. Rocket Lab is getting those contracts in the hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars over the course of a few years. And as a result, their revenue continues to increase as they bring value to the marketplace. You could see that revenue just climb year over year. And then also their balance sheet continues to build, and they continue to get more assets on their balance sheet without pushing their liabilities too much. They have pushed their liabilities up in 2024, but then they continued to ramp up their assets while keeping their liabilities flat, which meant that they're able to increase the margin, the increment between their total assets and their liabilities there, which is a good sign of growth and a healthy balance sheet for Rocket Lab. So those are why they are growing. We see those reasons as why they're growing. When it comes to their levels now, they are on the overbought side. Now, there's been some, hype articles, of course. We don't want to hype any stocks. And what's going on, Neil? Good to see you here in the chat. Savor the Skies, good to see you here. We have this high right now of $54, where they're now overbought. If you look in the near term here, okay, so we kind of take a step back, you could see them at these all-time highs of $54. The RSI is looking overbought. You see that? The MACD is looking way overbought at this moment. So they are looking overextended on the technical side. Now, from the revenue standpoint, we see them increasing revenue. Also, even though we're looking at them from a valuation of, comparing them to SpaceX is 10 times the market cap of Rocket Lab. If Rocket Lab becomes, at the same level as SpaceX, we're looking at a $250 billion market cap, which again, 10x of where they're currently at. But in the near term, with their revenue and where it sits, if investors consider that heavily for pricing it in, it does seem like it would pull back down to this $45 range, to this $42 range potentially, as we were looking for this move to highs 21% and made that move. Now it's at a resistance here. So at the resistance level, when we see it here, the key factor in Rocket Lab right now at a resistance is realize, like, long term, they're really in a good spot. Like, we focus on good stocks. We see their financials are good. They're a space company that's actually making money. We can see the real world value that they're providing to the marketplace. And Andres is here. Andres says, hey, Will, if Powell reduces the rate to 0.25 or cuts them there, how would it react? In theory, the market would go up. There's also some considerations is that the market has rallied the past 7 days, and maybe it was pricing in already, or maybe even overpricing for the anticipation of that rate cut. In which case, if we see the rate cut, or maybe we see a hold, that we could even see a pullback. So I wouldn't just bet the farm on that the market's going up because we're seeing a rate cut this week. I would, first of all, we don't know 100% we're going to see a rate cut. It's very high likelihood we're most likely going to see that. But we also saw the market already push up this past week. So all-time highs, doesn't necessarily mean we're not going to keep going, but it does seem like maybe we were pricing in already for the rate cut. And we could see maybe not as big of a move up as we might expect, or most investors might expect. So the $54 resistance now, we're not looking at pumps, right? We're not buying a space stock here. Personally, I have long-term positions in Rocket Lab, but you're not looking at it as something that's like, it's just going to keep on going up forever, right? This is a solid company. The conservative and actually healthy approach for Rocket Lab would be a sell back down into this $45 range. So just keep that in mind on Rocket Lab stock. Is that like, those are the levels. The next level of support here is right around $45 a share, where it recently pushed up from to that $54 price point. So that's the breakdown for Rocket Lab. And one institutional note, if you guys aren't familiar, we have seen more increased positions than decreased positions, indicating more momentum from the big banks and institutions that are investing in Rocket Lab. So you see Vanguard there, BlackRock, as well as Capital World, along with Bank of America and State Street. They're all putting, for the most part, investing heavier into Rocket Lab. So just keep that in mind. The institutional interest is also heating up there on Rocket Lab. Not necessarily mean it's going to continue up. As we mentioned, it's at a resistance now, but just keeping that in mind. So what's going on after dark? Says, hey, Will, have you seen earlier announcement of Big Bear participations in the U.S. Space Force developing AI tools to detect cyber attacks on satellites? I have seen that. In fact, that's a perfect segue after dark to our next stock on the top five stocks to watch right now in space tech, which is Redwire. So Redwire is actually a partner with Big Bear, and Redwire specifically has seen not just those partnerships kick in, but some other notable space contracts that puts them up there on our list. The financials look good. The execution of the contracts has been fairly good as well. When I was able to talk with Redwire, but also some of their partners that I was able to go speak with at a recent conference we went to get some more insights for you here on the platforms, is to get you the knowledge around why they're valuable, right? Or why they're not valuable. And so with Redwire, they are building some satellite tech that's been really valuable. They're building some infrastructure, and they're also doing things like drug discovery in space, as well as that partnership with Big Bear. So let's jump into it. First of all, we see them on the oversold side right now. When we just take a step back to the support, kind of see they've made this level, this recent pull down. At one point this year, they were up to $26 a share in February after rallying from $5 a share in late 2024. Then after February, they sold down to about $6 a share by April with the greater market. Then we saw them continue this run up into that $19 range and then sell down through the summer here to about $8 again. So they have this $8 support level currently. The $8 support level is where they are looking to validate. We've seen them start to validate this $8 support, and they're looking to jump back up into this $10 range here, which is about a 20% increase from when we began the analysis on this support level. But also where they're looking to gain is just the market, the market cap build up into this this $15 range to the $20 range. So we do see them start to find a support there at $8. We're looking for those 10 to 20 to 30% margins for profit. So that's why it's on our list. Now, when it comes to what they've done really well, let's see, there's a couple comments that rolled in recently. You got Patty says, are you holding? So that's a question for after dark. And then Quack says, how far can Rigetti go from Hong Kong? Thanks for tuning in, Quack. Yeah, I mean, Rigetti can go as far as they're able to provide value to the market. You know, right now they are a quantum computing company, which there's a lot of, we're in a golden age right now. So we're seeing them start to get some momentum. And, you know, they have come a long way since we started covering them at $1 a share. I think they're up to about $18 or $20 now. But doesn't necessarily mean they couldn't continue. We'll just have to do a deeper analysis. We'll have a quantum video out for you here this evening, I believe. Great. Okay, so when it comes to Redwire, there's a couple things to note on the company. They have had some restructuring. They're kind of a newer company, right? And they have focused not just on space tech. They've also had a intense focus on the air tech, including autonomous uncrewed mission aircraft. And it seems that maybe even in the drone tech industry, but primarily where they're excelling and where they're building out their technology is in the satellite industry, as well as the space-based sciences and defenses. You see them establish a new facility in Albuquerque there. We see them open some facilities to support space-based defense. Those are some of the recent articles. But really where they stand out is that they are signing contracts. They've had some recent, I think it was a $25 million deal this past week. They also were one of the 14 prime contractors, excuse me, one of the 14 prime contractors of a $2.6 billion contract through 2028 through NASA. So they're one of 14, so they potentially could be a really big contractor in that 14 selected company kind of pool there. But we don't know how much they're going to receive as a result of this contract. But given that they are in space tech, that is a focus and that market's doing quite well, I think it would be fair to assume that we would see them increase their revenue as a result of being one of the 14 contractors in that $2.6 billion deal. They also recently, just about 2 weeks ago, signed a $25 million award contract with NASA to provide biotechnology and support on orbit operations. So International Space Station is where they're kind of working. They're also working in Army long-range reconnaissance. So they're doing some air aviation technology as well. And you see them develop some new satellite technology that they're deploying here. It's AI-powered systems that they have been recently deploying. So when it comes to the Redwire focus, why we're looking at them at number 2 here is because their news is good. Their charts is oversold, and we want to look at companies that have integrity. We're not here to pump any stocks. We're looking for stocks that have integrity around the value all the way down to the balance sheet, to the value to the marketplace. And I challenge you as an investor or a trader to really commit to making sure that that's the goal, right? I mean, there's going to be pumps. There's always people trying to get your attention. You see all these YouTubers. I mean, how many guys have you guys seen that almost every place you go, digitally or physically, someone's talking to you about this next big thing that you have to buy before it's too late. It's quite common. Now, 95% of people don't have success investing because they don't take the time to ask the questions that make the difference. And some of the questions would be like, how do the financials look? So when it comes to Redwire, they're a $1.25 billion market cap. The question here is income. If their revenue is at $60 million per quarter on average, and they're increasing their revenue year over year by about 24%, okay? And they have been able to add to their balance sheet recently and get their total assets to 1.5 billion. So they have way more cash right now than the total valuation of their company. And that is why the valuation currently could be seen as undervalued. And when we're looking at the market sentiment, that's going to matter. When we're looking at, how institutions decide to interact with Redwire, of course, that matters. But when we're looking at the different factors that oftentimes attract institutional investors, this is one of those factors. Benjamin Graham, there's this great book on value investing I've been reading recently, and he talks about how the total assets of a company and a favorable investment outweigh the market cap of the company. So in this case, we see that. So that's a good instance for the financials. We also saw them pull back recently, but let's not forget, when we go back a year, they're still up from this $6 price point. They're still up to $8. So that's why they are there at number 2. We look at their market cap build and look for this potential 20 to 30 to even 50 or 100% reversal here on Redwire stock. So that's going to be a focus this week. So let's get into number 3. So I was in a place where I was struggling to get all the analysis on space companies. And I felt like the news wasn't matching up to like what the companies were actually doing. And I remember I was at this cafe, and I was trying to jump in and do some research. And I kept feeling like, gosh, this is just marketing. How do I differentiate between like marketing and like good? And I just would feel like, oh, there's so much information. Like, how do I know what's like fact and what like is meant to persuade me to buy a stock, right? And so what I did, rather than sit there and struggle and beat my head against my MacBook, is, I said, okay, what do we know is the key factors that institutions look for when buying? And so when I used to work at an institution, and I used to not always like working there, I worked at a bank in Boulder, Colorado, and I'll tell you, it wasn't the most favorable. Like, I loved every second, but there was certain things you learn about how things are valued and what people look for, and usually one of the things that are looked at, and what I learned is that the assets and the financials oftentimes will play more of a role than the charts. And the charts can play a role in the shorter term trades, and those definitely are considered. But that brings us to like a company like Lunar here. So Lunar, when you look at this is what's allowed me to find companies, like ever since I learned that finding what institutions look for, as opposed to trying to like just, I don't know, read a bunch of news and try and figure things out. What do they look for? It most times is going to be contracts and financials and things like that. And that's allowed me to make more trades and investments that have worked out. And so when it comes to Lunar stock, Lunar is in a position here where they're building infrastructure for space. They are building infrastructure for the moon. They're selected by NASA to advance lunar terrain vehicle capabilities. And, one of the big initiatives from the US recently has been, let's go back to the moon and let's get back into dominance here in space. Let's get more infrastructure out on the moon. And so Lunar, LUNR, they don't have any super complicated strategy. They just have these really cool these pieces of technology that they launch out, and they are basically these water hunting services on the moon's surface. So they have mobility, but they're like resource prospecting. So they're prospecting for different resources and doing material science and subsurface materials, and they're uncovering different water sources. And that's, in this case, in this mission, beyond the Earth. Sometimes they're looking for other things, like one of the conversations around space tech in the industry of one of the golden gooses that most space companies are thinking about. Obviously, it's like, let's advance so we can like go to Mars, or so we can be multiplanetary species. But the other thing that people are looking at is, can we find asteroids that we can mine, or can we find surfaces that we can find resources that we don't have to mine Earth in order to get, and end up with way easier. And so they recently had some news come out where they've had some new deals in the pipeline. I think it was just about 2 weeks ago they came out with, or maybe a little more than that, about a month ago, month and a half, a $10 million contract here for orbital transfer vehicles. So orbital transfer vehicles, meaning like helping build infrastructure in space that can move things from thing to thing, from infrastructure to infrastructure. So how many of you guys have seen as well, when we're looking at lunar stock here, that the quarterlies, the revenue has also seen some increases year over year. We've seen them jump up to almost $250 million in revenue, and on track to do the same in 2025. The revenue is up 20% year over year. Okay, net profit margins aren't there yet, but their total assets are also up to about $475 million in the last quarter. So total assets up 239%. So the balance sheet means they're seeing more investments, more companies say, hey, yeah, this is a very nice initiative for space tech. This is getting interest from NASA. They're seeing contracts roll in here and there. And they've seen some investments and buildup of their cash as a result, which gives them a lot of runway. So when we look at, and that's an interesting comment there. Patty says, I think Earth will become solely a planet for resources. That's an interesting one. It would be, I mean, we have a plentiful amount here of resources for sure. And then Quark says 100 qubits is what they're looking at for quantum. That makes sense. So when we're looking at the financials, what you have now is you have a breakdown of where they're at. Their financials are improving. They have a market cap of 1.57 billion, and they're looking to jump up into this $12 to $14 range. Now, is it going to happen? We don't know. We got to see how the institutions react. But what we've seen over the last year is this steady market cap build. Seen them increase their market cap here through February 2024 into 2025 of February. They had increased up to $25 from about $2. Then they continued to run up, and now they're at $8 with this $8 support, and looking to jump up into this $13 range and continue a run like this in their greater uptrend that we've seen them start to develop over the last year. So the key levels to watch: support levels are at about $8 a share. That's where their recent low has been, and that's where, if they break that level, they're continuing down, and they're not going to have the market cap or the continued uptrend, this consistent uptrend, continue if they break below $8. They're at $8.87, so they are starting to push above the moving average. You can see that RSI starting to reverse into more of a bullish direction, and see the MACD start to cross over down there as well, which would indicate that we could see some bullish momentum. So the next level of resistance, though, is not going to be up at $13. We're most likely going to see the next level of resistance right over here. You got this previous resistance here, which is at basically $9 a share back in March. Then you see that act as a resistance in May and a support level in June. And while it was broken back in August, you see it as a key level that they're going to face next. So next level of resistance from current prices is about a 10% upswing, and the nearest level of resistance will most likely in the near term be around about $9.50. So again, $8 support, $9.50 recent resistance that they would have to break through. If they break through there, they're looking to get up into this $11 to $12 range here, and that's a one to watch. Now, when it comes to what we've seen too with their recent trend, it's worth it on the technicals. As we mentioned, it's not as important as the financials we went over, but it's worth it to jump into the Fibonacci real quick. So I'm just going to jump in, get a Fibonacci retracement. In these instances, it can be good. So how you do that is you go from the all-time highs they recently had, which was about $25 a share. You're going to drag that down and look for the recent lowest low before they've made their recovery, which was about $6 a share. So we're going to pull up to where we would see them recover to. Now, in this greater trend, we're talking about them getting into this resistance up here probably around $15 to $17. Okay, so that's kind of how that looks. Probably seeing them make this move back up here. So if that's the case, it looks like the buy territory for confirmation, or at least what would indicate a really great buy from a Fibonacci perspective. On a long-term trend, if you're trying to trade it all the way up to $17, you're going to be looking for a buy confirmation of around $10.50, and that would really determine, that's probably when it's crossing over that 200-day moving average. We're seeing it start to really build that momentum back up. Now, if we're just looking for the recovery into this resistance level that we pointed out here around $12, $13 a share, technically the level at which it's at right now is the level in that golden ratio of the Fibonacci. And I know it looks like we got a lot of lines here, so my apologies. But you have 0.618 is the golden ratio Fibonacci. So essentially, if we're going from the lowest low we saw since that previous high, and we're going into previous resistance at 1370, we'd be looking for the buy territory for LUNR to be in this 850 to about 950 range. And they're at 887, which does indicate this is where, according to Fibonacci, we'd be buying if we were looking to make a trade that would be in the range of about, this is a pretty good trade. This is a great trade up into this $11 range. And then when you get up here into the Fibonacci of that lighter purple, that's like a really amazing trade. It's going like perfect with the Fibonacci. So we're talking about between a 20 to 50% margin for profit there on Lunar, which we like a lot. We like that overall uptrend, and that's just the smaller uptrend in the overall uptrend of that 10 to 50% there. So that's what we're going to watch there for Lunar. That's why it's on the top 5 in number 3. So when it comes to space stocks, most people could be looking at the things that are impacting them right now, like an Apple iPhone. They could be looking at a Tesla car. Maybe you're looking at the Nike shoes that you're wearing, and you're looking at the stock of the thing that is right around you. But sometimes there's things that you don't quite see, but they see you. And that would be number 4, which is BKSY, which is Black Sky. So Black Sky is a stock that when we've made money in space tech this year, Black Sky has been one of the top companies. We have a position currently, we're up about 48%. How is that possible? Well, when we're looking at companies, this is the analysis we go through, and I'm going to share it with you right now. The first key with Black Sky is to realize kind of where they're going from a financial perspective. We know that they're launching with Rocket Lab, for example. We were looking at the news with Rocket Lab. We were just doing them because they were on our list, and we went to missions launched, and we could see that Black Sky has been launching their Gen 3 satellites with Rocket Lab, right? So we know they're getting these up, and you might say, well, what are these satellites? Well, these satellites are um, these 3D imaging, or not 3D, AI driven imaging. And so they've had some good contracts, multi-million dollar contracts, but they have this AI driven analytics technology that's in their satellites. So they're doing the hardware, they're also doing the actual um, AI analysis of what's going on down on Earth. So that could be cars, it could be, airlines, it could be the movement of trade, it could be the ports of entry, or even heat signatures down on Earth. So they have this approach where they have very, very good images. In fact, really great images that could probably even recognize someone's face down on Earth. They are that good. And they are launching and partnering with many international and national, local, or like, or not national, like governments partners. So they are working with many government partners. So that's contributed to their financials. We saw them. Let's take a look here. BKSY. It's going to be BKSY. We saw them make this run up to 684 million recently. We've seen them over $1 billion before. Right now, the revenue is at 65 million in 2022, 94 million in 2023, 100 million in 2024, and then in 2025 they're on track to surpass 100 million in revenue once again. So revenues, for the most part, annually, we see them up year over year. Balance sheet looks good as they continue to ramp up their assets. And if they're making $100 million a year, their assets are at 310 million. With the market cap of about 684 million, it could make sense sentiment could continue. But we do see them overbought right now. They just made this big push up. You can see up into this level, the RSI and the MACD looking overbought at the moment. And so when they're overbought, we kind of project oftentimes red. We're going to be looking for, they just made this 20% move. We're going to be looking for a potential pullback or a validation of this new resistance as a support. So they found new resistance here. They could validate it as a support and continue up into that $21 range, another 15%. Or, we could see this move back down, right? So that's why we had them at number 4. While their technology is great, we see them launching aggressively with Rocket Lab and what have you. Financials look fairly good. They're still a little bit overbought at the moment. You can see they're overextended. So when one thing we'll do is we like to use Mercatus, right? This is the machine. And I'll search, this is a software that I've personally developed. And all the analysis that we do, I've actually made it do that analysis for me. So, and I can do it with, it will reference all the financial data. It will reference the SEC info, the institutional buying. It will reference the charts, the news, all that stuff. And I can use it with OpenAI or Grok. And if I wanted to search BKSY here to get kind of an analysis, I'm getting a breakdown, and it's going to give me some reasons why. And so when I'm looking at market data, like one widget that we have here is kind of a breakdown of the projections, right? What do we have projected here based on all that research? And some of the things, we're actually anticipating that over the next 6 months, for example, that Black Sky is anticipating growth of about 25%. So potentially getting up into, this $24 to $25 range. And part of the reason why is because of the technology they're dropping. It's part of their overall chart that we kind of went over just a minute ago as we see their market cap start to build out. And so this is one of my top picks. That's why we have it there. but it is overextended. So we'll be watching here at this $19 range, see if they hold that level currently. But we do have long-term positions there, just so you know. So before we get into the last one, I wanted to bring up a bonus stock, which is going to be ASTS. This stock currently has pulled back quite a bit. They specialize in 5G cellular broadband here for space tech. So space tech is one thing, useful space tech is another. They have build outs of these satellites that deploy into space and then open with their solar or with their 5G broadband that can now essentially communicate down and provide internet for phones down on Earth. So they've been doing some launches, they've had some momentum, and their stock is at $13 billion market cap though, with really no revenue yet. So this is a bonus. It's like super, super high risk because they haven't seen revenue, but their market cap's really high. But their balance sheet is pretty good. They got total assets at 1.8 billion, indicating they have plenty of runway, no like risk of like bankruptcy. But they are seeing some more agreements. They actually partnered with AT&T and Verizon to provide internet's 5G, but like from this technology that we're just looking at that they're launching up into space. So they kind of have some really good partnerships right now, and you can see where they're working right now and their partners. You could get a look at their partners. They got Verizon, AT&T there, along with Vodafone, Rakuten, and American Tower, Bell Canada, and they're looking to provide internet via these 5G broadbands in space. So that's the bonus one, and we saw them recently pull back. They did pull back to a previous resistance here. That's at $38 a share. It's previous resistance there. So if they were to continue down, that wouldn't be too out of character for them to get back into $27. But if they're going to continue a bull trend, we see them maybe make a move. That previous resistance, they have stopped up a little bit. And I was curious to see over the next week or so how they react, as they kind of have bounced a little bit at this previous resistance level that we saw them establish back here in August 2024. So a lot of times previous resistance will act as a support in a bullish trend. So if they're going to keep that bullish trend, this would be where they bounce. So that's why we got them there on the bonus list. And just for reference, like I actually was introduced to this stock around $3 a share. I don't have too many gains because I had a very small position. I had a friend who was working at a company that was partnered with ASTS, and he put me onto it around $3 a share. And I ended up doing some call options and actually lost the money. This was back in 2022. I think it was right around here. It was a funny one where like we did the options of like $8 and it was at like $3 or $4 a share. And it ended up like taking longer, and then it shot up to like $14 after my options already expired. So that was one where you gotta, it definitely turns, it's all part of the learning journey, right? I've been trading since I was about 15 years old, 16 years old, and just more to the lessons. But we do have long-term holds though. Aside from those, we've had for many years over in the Schwab portfolio, and those have performed quite well. However, that position has been fairly small. I think we maybe at this point we have over 5 figures, but we're not in 6 figures on that position right now. Still, it's below there. So when it comes to the number 5, which is our true number 5, it's going to be Planet Labs. Now, Planet Labs is an interesting one. I've been really liking to see the satellite technology that's been coming out recently. But one of the funny things is one of our stockmates inside of Stockmates that is, we trade live every morning, and every person that joins Stockmates, I end up calling them and like seeing their portfolio, where they're at, because I like to know, the net worth of people in our community, as well as what their goals are. And he works at Planet Labs, and he was really interested in some of the things we had going on related to the space tech companies we're analyzing. But he gave me some really good interest in Planet Labs. So they have satellite imaging and daily Earth insights to take action. So they're a leading provider of daily data and insights about Earth. Planet helps organizations harness change for action with multidimensional view of our changing planet. So whether it's vigilance, could be, finding fires early, it could be aircraft detection, making sure that this is similar to Black Sky that we were just looking at, and that's going to be AI powered, or broad area management. These are the things that's when we're looking at Planet Labs, they're starting to get some momentum. So when you look at some of the news, the press releases, or their partners, I think that's going to be a good one to look at. Their partners right now, let's see what they include for, this is Orbital. They got B0, they have Impact Observatory. I think I saw them, they're definitely in some news stations as well, which has been interesting. But basically what we were looking at was, from a perspective of the technology that they're providing and where they're going right now, is that they have a unique view at the marketplace and that they have a first mover advantage. So they got a $3 billion market cap. They did get going a little bit more aggressively before Black Sky. Their revenues have already seen like pretty good increases, steady increases. You can see their revenue increasing year over year, average of 10% or more. They got up to 200 million plus, and in 2025 they're on track to do about $250 million in revenue. Their assets are also very healthy. You see them up around $650 million and holding strong with their liabilities low as well. When you take a look at the news that they've come out with recently, they have had some public offerings or private offerings where they've sold shares in order to raise money, and that's something that oftentimes happens with space companies as they look to build their balance sheet, as the space economy can be volatile. But you do see them also get some deals. Like July 1st, they were awarded a 240 million euro deal. They also were awarded some multi-year contracts here for AI powered analytics across Colombia. So they're working not just with the government, but with a lot of other companies as well. And the contract sizes are pretty big. They got 7-figure contracts or sometimes 8-figure contracts, as we just saw, with governments like the German governments, we saw Colombian government, as well as the US government of Zanzibar there. And that's why they're seeing the increase in market cap. So I see Two Wheel Pursuit says, MNTS. Jim Jam says, do you have any calls on Black Sky? Personally, I don't have any calls on Black Sky. I would probably be leaning towards like selling puts, something like that. Just because it's a little more reflective of where they currently have got to in the analysis there that we're looking at. Just looking tiny bits overbought at the moment. And then you look at the move of Planet Labs on the chart. We get into the plan. They recently surged. They're now overbought at the moment. They have seen a breakout above the $7 range. Next level of support is going to be $8 a share, that previous resistance level. So we're going to see them potentially sell back down here to this $8 support. So when we're looking at the levels they're at currently, they look a little overbought. You could see the RSI, you could see the MACD. A pull down would make sense. That's why we have them here at number 5. And again, if you guys need the top 5 space stocks or more stocks, make sure to subscribe, or you could screenshot as well. Here on this screen, you can see those top 5 that we just went over. But we're going to be watching again, $10 resistance. We could see if it continues to push up. We'd probably it's overbought right now. We'd look for a buy closer down to about $8 a share to even $6.50 would be a better entry. Long term probably doesn't matter much. Short term, if we're trying to trade it, we are fine with the financials. They're quite of integrity. The news is consistent. The build, the steady cash flow, 130 million, 200 million, a quarter of $1 billion. On average, they're really just continuing to grow their revenue, which is great. So from a long-term perspective, they look great. From a short-term perspective, they are dynamic. We want to look for a pullback and probably get a better entry if we're going to trade it short-term. Right now, we have some other ones we went over that were more in a buy territory. We'll be watching those ones more prominently until we see this one drop into levels of more of an undervalued point. But when it comes to those ones, we'll be watching closely. It really just comes down to a lot of them, whether they continue to validate the support and continue up. So we went into some of those stocks here, like Redwire, like BlackSky, like Lunar, and we'll be watching them closely, see if any opportunities present themselves at market open. If you guys want to join us at market open, we'll be there tomorrow morning. The live session is starting at 6:30 a.m. or at market open, wherever that is for you. For me here on the California coast, it's 6:30 a.m. to see if we can trade any of those opportunities live. We also cover AI stocks, robotics, and AI defense, drone tech, data centers, all those good technology, forward-looking innovation developments that you want to be looking at probably in this market now. And if you want to join us there, watch my entries, watch my exits. It's the second link in the description below to join Stockmate. Thank you guys so much for watching. If I earned your thumbs up, hit the like button. Do consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.